Good morning, everyone. We're very happy to have you on board with us. I'm Arina, and this is Aviv. We are both part of the Power BI team in Israel Development Center. I'm a software engineer, and Aviv is our product manager. Our team's focus is Power BI and Excel better together, and this is what we are here to talk to you about. The agenda for today's session will be covering the unique values and offering of BI, both in Excel and Power BI. We will take you folks through an observation exercise through which you will understand how Excel and Power BI are better together. And of course, we will have cool demos for our relevant scenarios. So let's start. Excel is the world's #1 tool for data analysis, with hundreds of millions of users. And it's available for our users on all platforms, on Windows, iOS, Android, and web. Our peers here in the conference are covering the many things possible doing both in Excel and Power BI throughout the whole conference. We will focus on the unique value of Excel BI. Things like pivot tables and cube functions, the data grid where everyone is running their simple calculations, data validations, and more. Rich formatting capabilities for charts and tables. And of course, the object model, which everyone with some time in his hands can automate everything and use it and have much value out of it. Power BI is part of the Microsoft Complete BI solution, the new industry leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for business intelligence and analytics platforms. It is a powerful self-service BI tool for a fraction of the cost of its competitors, disrupting the self-service BI world. With Power BI, you can experience your data, anywhere, anytime, by connecting to on-premises as well as cloud service data sources. With Live Dashboard, you get a 360 degrees view of your business. You can thrill through to underlying reports, slice and dice your data with their interactive visualizations. And you can also experience your data with new ways which Power BI enables you. We will show you and demonstrate later on with natural language query, Cortana integration, and quick insights. All three of them are unique to Power BI. With all this in mind, one could still choose to use the tools of his choice, whether it's Excel or Power BI. These live nicely side by side. But if that's the case, then why are we saying that Excel and Power BI are better together?
Okay, so yes, I do agree that at first glance, when you look at Power BI and Excel, both would be useful as a great BI tool, right? And at the same first glance, it's worth mentioning that both are using the same underlying infrastructure. So both are using the same get data with Power Query, and both are using the same data infrastructures to save the models, and both are using the same query languages. And when you get the data inside, you can query it the same way. And they both connect to the same external sources, whether those are on-prem or on the cloud. So maybe they are better together, right? We can see where this combination could bring us more value. This is where I want to take a short break from speaking about Power BI and Excel and to introduce you to something I've learned just recently. It's called Vuja Day. And if it sounds familiar, it's because this is, it's coming from the term déjà vu. Déjà vu is something everybody knows. It's doing something for the first time, yet you feel like you've done it before or you've been there before. So Vuja Day is turning this around. It's quite the opposite. It's doing something again and again for countless times, but then feel like it's the first time you've encountered something new. And I want to take you through an observation exercise that I found by a distinguished professor, and God help me here, Vijay Govindarajan. So this professor got a blog post on the Harvard Business Review blog, where he published this picture, a simple picture, and he was asking people to look at this and to count the number of squares that they see. I encourage you to do the same, and in 1 second I'll give you all the answers. So let's move to that. Okay, I'm going to use this observation exercise to explain how we want to look at things with Power BI and Excel. And we want to separate that to 3 levels, as Dr. Gunvidarajan has done with his exercise. At first glance, when you look at this structure, this cube structure, you can see 16 squares, right? It's very obvious, 4 on 4. Everyone can see this instantly. But if you start looking or going through a systematic view of the structure you see here, you may find there are other ways to count squares here. There are other configurations. So there are a configuration of 2 on 2 and 3 on 3 and 4 on 4. And if you count those sum of configurations, you get to 30. It requires out of the box thinking and a bit of creativity to look at this structure and see that there are actually 60 squares. 30 of those are the ones marked here as dark blue, and the other 30 are the ones with the white frame. So what I wanted to show you with this exercise is that you don't want to miss anything because you stopped looking too soon, right? And now that I've made you understand that you need to look even further into Power BI and Excel, now let's go and see what we gain by looking at this even more deeply. So like I said before, the first glance is something we see as, yes, these are 2 great tools. Both provide a great BI experience. And you can choose either one and be safe with that and feel great by using that alone. But what happens if we start thinking about the ways to combine Power BI and Excel? Let's start with a short demo. Good.
So we will start with a classic Excel workbook for the sales organization of Van Arsdale, a pet food vendor, 1 out of 14 vendors selling pet food and supplies in several European countries and North America. Looking at our sales report, we can see that we are doing well till mid-year 2014, and since then we are coping with sales decay. We can analyze our sales by year, by country, and also to look into our competitors' sales. We've been asked by our management team to provide an easy way for them to slice and dice this data within Power BI. So we will choose to publish the data model from the workbook to the service, and it's available through the publish section in Excel 2014. So you are currently seeing 2 possibilities. There are 2 ways to get data from Excel workbook into Power BI. We have we'll start with the export. You have the export, which actually takes the data model from the workbook and uploads it to the cloud, to the data, to the service. And we have the upload, which we will speak about and show you in just a couple of minutes. So let's start with exporting this workbook. Once it's completed, we can go through to the service, and we can see that a new data set was added with the same exactly name as our workbook, the year-over-year sales comparison. Now that we have the Excel data within Power BI, we can start enjoying the analytics capabilities and exploration which we have in the service. So we start by building a new visual, a simple one of total revenue by year. And as you can see, this is exactly the same visual like we had in our workbook. So we find it useful, and we would like to create a new sales dashboard out of it. So we click the pin button, and we create new sales report, and afterwards new dashboard. We choose the new dashboard, provided our name. And as you can see, this is the same exactly flow, very simple, and we have our new dashboard. Now let's have some fun. We can start by querying this data. We will start simple, so let's just start typing total revenue. As we type, we got immediately a reflection of the data result, and it's just in front of us. We can continue to analyze and dice this data by countries, for example. So cool. We got our data results immediately on a very interesting visualizations, which is the map one. I hope you do understand that we are actually querying the Excel data, and it's available through a simple way using the natural query. Unfortunately, as we look into this data, we can see that we have a problem in Canada. So let's try to drill into the Canada states and figure out maybe what's the problem, what's the issues there. Yeah, so looking at this in that way, I do recall that during the last 3 years, we had a problem of sales in Quebec. And maybe it's worth to just verify how good is my memory and to break it by years. So we just type by years, and here we go. This visualization actually looks very meaningful and important for our company. So we would like to take this inside and add it to our dashboard. So we choose to pin it. You know what, Aviv, just wait a second. Maybe we are talking about regions, so probably it will be much more convenient to look at it as a map. So we just switch as we type to a map visualizations, and that's it, exactly, yeah. Let's pin it. So here you go. We just seen the art of visualizing our data explorations. And we had it very naturally and very convenient using the natural language query.
All based on the Excel workbook.
Yeah, and it's all based on your Excel workbook data. Let's continue with our demo, and we will now go through the second options to get data from Excel workbook to Power BI service, which is the connect, also known as upload from Excel 2016. When we can connect a workbook to Power BI, we upload the workbook to the Power BI repository, and we are able afterwards to share the workbook with our co-workers within the organization using the Excel Online capabilities our team embedded within Power BI. We can also have our workbook data be up to date by using Power BI to schedule refresh. When we click on the market share report, if you have noticed, after connecting, we got a new report item under the report section, and it has the Excel icon next to it, just to identify this is actually a workbook. This is our workbook. So clicking on it, we get the Excel grid, the familiar one with Excel Online. And now the users can choose whether they would like to consume their workbook as they are used to within Excel Online, or maybe they just want to focus on a special area, special portion in the grid, and they choose the pivot table they have interest in and might have business value on their organization. So we can just select the pivot table, and we have the pin options right out of here. We choose, of course, to add it to our sales dashboard. We pin it. And now when we're going back to the sales workbook, we can see this pivot table as a tile. This is actually a workbook tile, which is a snapshot of your Excel grid data, and it always contains the most up-to-date data using the refresh capabilities of Power BI. You can schedule refresh on your report through the schedule refresh section, and you can always hit the refresh now to get to receive your to have the most up-to-date data and refresh it. So I find it very useful and very natural to see both Excel grid elements and Power BI visualizations reside side by side. This is very important, and actually we have heard from many customers through the customer's voice that they would like to see exactly this. They would like to have their Excel data with Power BI visualizations and to be able to consume this visualization, share them, spread them, and have meaningful and impactful decisions, business decisions on top of that. So we will continue with one more scenario. let's assume we got another workbook from our marketing team. This one is about our count of stores in different locations. And we may want to add it also to our sales dashboard to provide our management team more insights or more perspectives when they come to make business decisions. But sometimes people rather not to upload their entire workbook since it might have sensitive data, or they're just afraid to upload the workbook to the cloud. So they would like to focus on special Excel elements, Excel parts, and upload only these parts. So if you can see, we're using now Excel 2010, and with our Power BI publisher for Excel, supporting Excel version starting from 2007, we can do exactly that. So we have introduced a new tab, which is the Power BI tab, in which we have our main capabilities. Currently, we can pin Excel artifacts, we can update them, and we can manage the published tile from the workbook with the live tiles in the service. So just as a side note, Power BI Publisher just GA this week and is available to download through Power BI Download Center, and through this, within the service you have the download section, and we are also here. So you are all welcome to download it, use it, and share your feedback, comments, and
everything you want from me.
New features or anything you might have missed in this version. So let's start. We can just choose the pivot chart, and we select it, and we choose to pin it. It's also available through the right click. And here we go. We got into the same familiar experience like we had in the service. So we are staying with our sales dashboard. We're hitting OK, and that's it. We have a snapshot of this pivot chart in our sales dashboard. We will choose to do the same thing, I think, with our cute logo company. So let's pin this as well.
Oops. I love it when it shows up.
So that's it. Let's just recap what we have seen here, and
okay,
go
let's
back
switch to the presentation back again.
Switch. Just switch the
No,
monitor.
they should switch us. This is it.
Okay, so we will do a review of what we've just seen in this demo. As a happy Excel users who likes doing everything on the grid, we've just shown you a way to share your grid data, keep your workbook always up to date, and share grid portions from various workbooks into a single spot, single dashboard. You can take it up a notch, and you can import your workbook data into Power BI, get a data set, build a report, and you can enjoy all the Power BI capabilities you have already enjoying with other data sources, and Excel is one of the native data sources you can use within the service. If you remember the observation exercise we did earlier, just looking into it and using it, you will find many more options and possibilities to use and integrate Excel into Power BI. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so before we move on to our next demo, in this demo, we'll exercise and show a feature which is something more like an out-of-the-box feature. But before we go there, I want to speak about, and I see his face here, so this is even more fun for me. I want to encourage you guys to go and use the Power BI and the Excel user voice. This feature is something which started as an ask from a single user, and it got the other voices maybe of other people here in this room, and it got to be on the top 10 list of the user voice of Power BI. And when we saw that this is such a big requirement out there, we decided to pick it up. I'm talking about analyzing Excel. This feature will allow you to connect Excel to the Power BI data model and create pivot charts and everything related to that. Let's switch to the demo machine. Okay, so I've pre-created a dashboard here. This dashboard represents data for tourism in Hawaii. We can see people coming to the islands, how many days they spend there, how much money they spend while there, etc., etc. One might want at this stage to open the same connection to this data set and work in Excel because of the benefits of Excel or because it's just comfortable for them. So once you choose the tourism report that we use to create this dashboard, we have here on the menu a new feature called Analyze in Excel. It could also be reached by the data set itself because we are creating a connection to the data set. Once you click this feature, two things happen, and this is very important. There is no other way for us to ask you guys to install the latest updates for Excel at this stage, but to show you a toast here that asks for that. This is a first-time experience, and in order for us to be able to create the new connection type in Excel, we'll need you to install this update. Once you do that, you can define that you don't want to see this toast ever again by removing it. In parallel to that, and this is something you'll see every time you click Analyze in Excel, you'll get a download. We are creating in the background an ODC file. An ODC file is a connection string only. It's a very slim file, so very easy to download and open. Once you open an ODC file, Excel automatically is opening such files, such file extensions. This message is just to show you that you're opening a file from an untrusted directory. I'm using the download directory. You can define Excel that the download directory is a trusted directory, and then you won't see this message again. In the meantime, until we see what we get here, I just want to explain what's happening in the background. And you won't see it here because I've done this already, and we are caching everything, the connection. I'm currently being authenticated versus Power BI. So only as a Power BI user, an authenticated Power BI user, I'll be able to get this. And of course, for the first time since I started in Power BI, it makes sense, right? And we are also verifying the authorization, that the user has authorizations to the data set which we are seeing here. If you know Excel pivot tables well enough, you'll know that if someone creates such a file and saves the pivot table, let's say that I'll go through this exercise in 1 second. I'll create a pivot table and I'll save it, and then it's an XLS file, XLSX file. If I send it to someone, this person would be able to open this workbook and get the data as it is. This is the caching mechanism of the pivot table. But if they want to get the refreshed data, the up-to-date data, they need to go and run a query against the data set in Power BI. For that, they will need to be authenticated and authorized. As you've seen, we are caching this information, so you only need to go through that once. Okay, so I'll start by creating a very simple pivot table here. Oh, I'm sorry, where did I start? Days visited per person spending by region and island. You see, every time I'm clicking on the pivot table and asking to add something into it, a query is running to Power BI. You see, it actually is surprisingly fast. Now let's try and use the features of Excel here. We can say that we want to color things to start seeing it more easily. So let's use conditional formatting here and conditional formatting there. And I think I chose the wrong days visited, average length of stay. I chose the wrong one, so let me rerun this. Otherwise, it will be hard to average length of stay. Good. I'll redo the same thing. Okay. So once we have this, it's easier to see the combination, right? You are all familiar with Excel, so you know that. I also want to add a pivot chart based on the same connection. So let's choose a combo chart and show both on the same chart with 2 axes. We may say this is too hard to consume at this level. Let's try and take that drill out. Okay, so now if we look at this chart, you can see that there are two main regions which are a bit suspicious here, the suspicious points here. The Japanese who spend time in the islands, they spend a lot of time in the islands, and they spend a lot, I'm sorry, they are spending less time on the islands, but they are spending a lot of money while there. And the Canadians, and no offense here, I'm sorry, this is just a data set, they are spending, no offense, really. And the Canadians are spending a lot of time on the islands, but really almost no money is going out of their pockets. So we can, no offense, really. I love Canadians. Okay, so if we look at the data here, we can, and if we drill down just to the Canadian chart, we see that the main problem here is for folks who are visiting the island of Molokai. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. And let's try and dig deeper into this by adding a slicer. The slicer also relies on the same connection to Power BI. So we can choose the visit purpose, and we get a slicer. Once we have the slicer, we can again slice the data with other dimensions until we get to a point where we are happy seeing that this is showing us a really problematic number, and we want to work on that. So another feature of pivot table in Excel, you can drill through the data, and again, this is data coming from Power BI. Once you have this, you're free to do everything you want. This is making an insight actionable, right? Okay, so let's go back to the slides. At this stage, I would hope you give me some set of applause, but Amir took the... I knew that once Amir decided to add this into the keynotes, it will be our killer. Anyhow, let's get back to what we just saw. So why are we thinking this feature requires a creative thinking? Because unlike a simple export of data, where you only get all your data out there, with Analyze in Excel, you can get down to drill down to the data, but you also have the ability to continue and enjoy the value of authorization and authentication you've already set up in Power BI. And on top of that, you also retain the power of your measures, your modeled measures. So if you have created great models with measures and calculations in them, and while using it with this feature, you keep enjoying those, the power of that. Okay, so I'll start recapping. We were trying to take you through an observation exercise to show you how we look at things of using Power BI and Excel, and why it's more than just one and one. The combination of Excel and Power BI will make the one and one add up to more than just two. On the first glance, you can see Excel and Power BI as two separate tools, and you can continue and work with the tool of your choice and be fine with it. But you do have to realize that once you learn something in one of these tools, this will be very useful for you if you choose to use the other. Once you go and use a systematic scan of the capabilities of combining Excel and Power BI, you can see that if you import or connect your Excel workbooks to Power BI, you gain a match of each other, right? Like the example we did with the Q&A. It's over your Excel workbook, and you can do more. You can also run the Cortana integration and the everything else. Yeah, I forgot the name of that. So everything else that Power BI has to offer with that. You can create the visualizations of Power BI over your Excel data, or you can use Excel visualizations. And the creative thinking here is with the feature of Analyzing Excel, which provides you something I think no one else does, an ability to connect from your Excel desktop, create reports in the tool that you love working with so much. If people love looking at visualizations and they are comfortable with Power BI, they can consume those from there And if you have folks in the same organizations that would love working with seeing the numbers, then you can create parallel reports for them to consume as a workbook. One more thing I want to add here, which I think it has been obvious through our session. Excel is part of every piece of Power BI. There's one thing we haven't demoed is the connection of Excel as a data source to the Power BI desktop tool, but it does work as this as well. As we have shown you, Excel could be a data source inside Power BI, inside the service. It could be, I can't read that far. It could be added to content packs once added as an object to Power BI. It could be used on live dashboards with visualizations, creating Power BI visualizations over the data in Excel or using the Excel visualizations. You can create reports with it and add it as a data set, and of course use the data refresh to get the latest data once it's up on Power BI. As we've shown you, you can use natural language query, and you can share and collaborate with your data with all possible platforms, whether those are the service and the mobile.
Yeah, we can also consume the Excel workbook, the tiles and the reports through the different types of devices.
Yep.
PC, tablets, it's also available through mobile, so you are set to go.
So if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from this session is you should feel very comfortable keeping or using the tool of your choice, but please be aware, and I just want to make sure you know that. We are doing everything in our hands to make these work better together. That's all.
Aviv, you have hired some folks here.
Thank you, guys. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer those.
Is this guy get a t-shirt?
Let me take mine off. Shoot. 1 second. No, it's a free feature. It's allowed for everyone. Go ahead, Avi.
So we saw James Willis, we heard James Willis talk about role-level security on the Power BI. That was one of the most asked features. Is that going to continue to work if I analyze in Excel?
So actually, what we are doing, we are connecting to the Power BI data set. I'm sorry? I'm sorry. So the question was whether we are going to support the row-level security that is currently being introduced to Power BI when we consume the data in Excel. So what we are doing with the Analyze in Excel feature, we are actually connecting to the data set in Power BI. So if Power BI, whatever resides on Power BI, and if Power BI data set can accommodate for the row-level security, then we will also have the same experience.
It's actually an external connection for AS. So we are connecting from the Excel workbook through to the Power BI AS in the cloud.
Any other question? Yes. Could you raise your voice a bit? I'm sorry, if you may.
The question is, can a third-party application do what you're doing in Excel, access data to Power BI?
So generally speaking, this...
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. I'm so excited that I've heard him, so I didn't think of sharing it with everyone. So the question was whether any other external tool would be able to use the same capabilities that we are showing here for Excel, right? Okay, so the thing that we have implemented here is part of the SQL 16 release. It's an MS-OLAP library file. So everyone who can define an external connection to AS using that MS-OLAP library file can do the same. Of course, they will need, as I said before, to be authenticated and authorized users with access to that data set. and they will need to have, at this stage, to understand the way, and this is probably something they can learn from the documentation, how to build that connection. But once the ODC file is created, and if they apply and be able to read the configuration, then yes, the answer is yes. Yes?
So desktop, Power BI desktop?
Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to speak for those guys because I'm not working in that team, but so they are working, you know what, I'm not sure I'm allowed to speak about that, but you'll find, soon you'll find that we are working on creating the same capabilities for the desktop.
So you created the slices, the spreadsheet, right?
I'm sorry.
The slices to Power BI, the slicer.
Could you please stand? This is you. Oh. This is too far from me. I'm sorry, I can't hear anything. What was the question again?
Yeah, you created the slices in the Power BI, the Excel spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
If you publish the spreadsheet to the Power BI, is
Yes.
the slicer will work across the dashboard?
Great question. So let me repeat the question. I'm learning. So the question was, if we've shown you that we've added slicers into the Excel workbook, and the question is whether that Excel workbook, once uploaded to Power BI, right, or to an Excel online service, will still be, how do you say that? Interactive. So at this stage, I'm sorry to say, but no, but we are working on it. Okay, so we have that on our backlog. This is the first thing we want to start working on soon. We understand the issue.
So sharing that connector, would I publish something on Power BI, and then would I have to share with, do the share option with another user?
Yes.
And then I could send them the ODS file?
ODC file. Sharing. So if you want people to have the an ODC file is something you download. You can send it anywhere, right? And once someone clicks on it, Excel opens. Of course, they have to be. Okay, so the thing is, I think I've answered this before. Again, the question was whether what's the sequence of events when you want to share such a connection through the ODC file with someone else. So you'll need to add this person to a group, to a group of users which have both access to Power BI and the authorization to use the data set. Okay? When you add those persons into the group of authorized persons, and then you can send them the file and they will have access. They will be authenticated and they'll get the same experience as we've shown here. Okay? Any other question?
Yeah.
Is there any thought about the SharePoint Excel services integration on this web app integration?
With what? Sorry?
This web app through 2016
Excel services. So the question is whether there is any thought about
Maybe the same capability with an ODC file through Excel services.
okay, so whether we can do the same with Excel Online, Excel services. So it's the same answer I gave about embedding such a workbook inside the Power BI as an Excel Online experience. It's not yet there. You can share this file through Excel Online, but it wouldn't be interactive. If you click the slicer, it wouldn't work. So you just can consume the picture as it is. But yes, we have that on our... Okay? Anything here? Anyone? Yes?
When is this available, your connection?
I would love to say tomorrow, but through this month, with a update of the service. So when you see an update of the service, an announcement for an update to Power BI service, it will be there. It will be there. Okay? Thank you, guys.
That's it. Thank you very much.